it's so simple and so hard. As you know, getting clear is the hardest thing you can do, but it is so worth it. And so a lot of clients, after they work with me, they're like, that was therapy, because I'm like, look, I can't illustrate what you can't communicate. I can't, we have these spaces on your website for different things, but this verbiage over here, I don't know what the hell that means,
On today's episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat, we talked to Sarah from Hoag Photography. She helps businesses tell their story through photos. Let's dive right in. Sarah, thanks so much for coming in and joining on an episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat. I'm excited because we tried to do this, almost a year ago?
Yeah, it was a while.
And I was going through missed opportunities and saw that we never made it happen and reached out. And so appreciate you taking the time and coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So, I mean, one thing that really stuck out is the storytelling. You're creating content. You're huge into photography. But before we get into all that, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about your background. Now, before this, you mentioned, from San Francisco. So I'd love to hear what is your story?
Well, I grew up in LA. My dad was an amateur photographer. He was a tax accountant. And then he had got one of the first digital DSLR cameras when it came out. And I want to say that was like 1999. Maybe a little bit later into the early 2000s. But I actually got my BA in theology. I went to I've never heard of that. A Christian school, and thought I would pursue, because I just had a lot of young people around me that I loved, like mentoring and that kind of thing. And then right before I got married, my dad passed away. And then I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area with my husband and asked my mom, what's going on with dad's cameras? Anyone using it? And so she sent it to me and I started taking photos, and I was working in a church at that time. And it's just a lot of community, a lot of people, and hey, will you do this? Hey, will you do that? And so I call myself sometimes like the accidental photographer because it was never on my radar. It wasn't something I was pursuing. It was like, hey, you have a nice camera. Will you take pictures of this? And then it got to a place where, well, I guess I got to start charging maybe like $50 or something here and there. And so it was right around then that I started having kids. I have 3. And so I was doing this kind of side gig and raising kids.
Working full time?
And then I was working full time. I stopped working, and then I became like a wedding photographer, and that just kind of took off. It really just took off without me. So I think what I had was a strong word of mouth within having a community there, and I guess I had talent. It was hard for me to recognize at that time. It was really like I felt like an imposter. I dealt with imposter syndrome for so long, because I didn't get a degree in it and I didn't do formal training, but it was like the age of YouTube. And I want to say, what year is this? Like 2006, 2007.
Right when YouTube started. I mean,
learning everything from YouTube. And I ended up taking like, adult college late night class or something like that. But, what I would tell other people and people that are starting out is, get a question, find the answer. Have another question, find the answer. Don't think that you're going to go take a class and you're going to learn everything you need to know. It's hard. It's not, you don't learn overnight. I'm still learning.
Always
learning. And but learning how to use the camera, you don't ever really fully, master it. I guess there are people, but, so then I was in the Bay Area for over 10 years, and my husband and I decided to get out of Dodge. We were just like, let's get out of California. Housing prices were ridiculous. And we decided to parachute into Phoenix.
And what made you choose Phoenix?
My husband it just felt like that was calling him, and we just did it. We just made a leap. It was in a rough place in our life where he had come off a job and he had severance pay. So it was like an opportunistic moment to say, let's go ahead and just do it. So we were both at this place of, he's trying to find a new job, and I'm thinking, what do I do with my photography business? I don't know. And then I said, I suck at marketing. I suck at branding. What do I do? I don't know how to market myself. I don't know how, any of this works.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the crux of where I found myself. This is about 5 years ago. Just really delving into marketing and branding. And lo and behold, I fell in love with it. And
awesome.
There's a book by Dane Sanders called The Fast Track Photographer that I read. And my favorite quote is, "You curb a market on being you." And so it was just like, the more you delve into uniquely who you are and what you have to offer, then the competition goes away.
Yep.
Right. So I started, throwing out these Facebook ads that were doing nothing, just like, let me put this one up. Let me do something happens. Here.
But you were testing.
It was just like, okay, well, so I found myself competing with all these great photographers that were already established here. And I just felt my self-esteem and everything going down, comparison trap and imposter syndrome again. And even though I had been a photographer at that time for, 9 years or more, then I was still in that spot of, how do I get out of this? So through just diving deep into, all the great resources that we have online now, I would say like Jenna Kutcher and Building a Story Brand, which is my favorite thing ever by Donald Miller.
Check that one out.
It's a podcast, it's a book, it's a framework. The framework, and again, shout out to Story Brand is, who's your client? What problems do they have? How do you have empathy toward that? How do you bring competency? What's the plan that you're going to take them on? And then how are they going to feel after working with you? So the story of your brand is not your story. It's the client's story through working with you. So a lot of people think it's their origin story, or
that's what you hear a lot now is you got to tell your origin story. You have to tell your origin story.
But it's really their journey with you. So it's them having these issues, and that's why they're going to come to you, because you offer this product or service that, you can help them get on the other side. And so you're the guide and they're the hero. So if your client is the hero of your story, and it's not you, like, hey, I do this and I'm so great and I whatever, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck with marketing and advertising, because they feel like maybe it's narcissistic in some way to tout like how great you are. And,
it's tough.
But what you should be touting or saying is like, we help people.
Yep.
And when you are a person, like a service-based person, then all of a sudden you go, I can do that. I can tell people that I can help them. And usually the best person that you can help is the former you.
Yeah.
So if you can find more of the people that were struggling in that area, then you're able to then help them, put the bridge out in front of them and help them get to the other side. So I was able to take what I was learning and just put it, boom, right into my business.
That's
and
awesome.
I changed it to, I no longer took weddings. I no longer took, all these things that I was kind of fighting for. And I said, I want to work with businesses, because the friends and the people that I was meeting, because they're starting to network, were other entrepreneurs and people that had the same struggles. And how do we do this? And how do I actually make money?
So there's a connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you kind of flip it and then become your own, like you start to help people, and it's like the competition just goes away, So
that's ultimately the goal. Because then if you're more times than not, when we help clients, there's so much attention on, well, what is the competitor doing? And it's like, you're not focusing on you and the problems that you solve and the solutions you bring to your product or service or whatever it may be. It's tough to get on those blinders, but if you can figure out a way that you can, blind all that out, that's where things just get a lot easier.
Absolutely. So it's like, if there's somebody else that does the same thing as you, look at it and say, is it really the same thing? And what could I do more of? That's my thing, versus trying to copy them. It's if you get into that, we're going to copy other people, then you'll always be second best. You'll always be third. But especially in an industry like mine, where it really is, I'm the sole part. I don't have affiliate photographers yet, per se. I've thought about it, but there's other branding photographers, but they aren't you, and they don't have the same process. You created your own process. So sometimes that's tough to let people know how you work and how you work differently than other people. Yeah. But that's a big part of educating too.
Yeah. No, there's so many good things that you said that I'm excited to kind of dive into. But I mean, what it comes down to is that humanizing a brand and really, I mean, building that relationship. Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, there's other photographers, there's other marketing agencies, there's other services that are offered that are the same, but you are you. There's no one else that's like you. And that's where, if you can show that behind that, and it's, hey, yeah, we're going to get this done. This is the work, but you're also gonna have to work with this person. And do we align in our views, our values, and just how we communicate and all that? And by showing that, it's like, you know, that obviously the work is good. I see the work that you're doing, but I also know that it's going to be a good working relationship because I'm able to see that side of you.
Yeah. I'll often say I'm looking for people who are looking for me. You know, it's like, there's people out there that know that they need someone like me, but you know, finding the way to get the connection is not easy. And then also, that I'm looking for, like, it's certain psychographics, not demographics.
Yep.
You know, everybody has their avatar, and, you know, it's this girl that works in this area that drives this car. You know, it's like, the thing of it is, I work with law offices that want to be, want lifestyle images for their Instagram. Another law office is like, heck no, no, I'm not putting anything online, or we're not doing that. So it's not a one size fits all. You're looking, I mean, one of my good clients is a ear, nose, and throat doctor, you know, but they know my big thing is helping businesses. Well, my tagline is making business personal, and it's trying to get away from some of that stock photography that feels cold and impersonal. There's nothing wrong with stock photography, but if you want people in your area to know, like, and trust you, then you better be the ones showing up, you know, in the feed.
Yep.
And so if you have like a chiropractic business and you're just showing all of these photos of people getting massages or adjustments, like, people just tune out. They don't care. Yeah. But if they made a connection with Dr. Brian, and they see him all the time and he's talking about what he's doing, and there's a photo of him in it, then now I'm making that connection and I'm seeing you again. And, you know, I always say, like, good businesses educate, and I'm here to illustrate.
I like that. That's really good. I mean, do you think it's more powerful to show the behind the scenes rather than the actual, like, product or service, like, being done, like, rather than everything we posting be someone massaging? Like, we get that, you do that, but do you think it resonates better with audiences, or people like that better when you get the behind the scenes?
Definitely the behind the scenes, or the process, you know. The
process. I think that's more of what.
There was so right when I was making this transition to, you know, business branding is what I call it, or and lifestyle for businesses, or personal branding is another big one that I've this last year really pushed. But I was at a street fair, and there was this one tent, and you could see all these people around the tent, and you were coming up and there were knives, like handmade knives, and they were on these really cool displays, like, going around. And I was just looking like, wow, these are really popular. Everybody really likes these knives, apparently. And on the back of the tent, they had a huge poster, and it showed the beginning process, the middle, putting the handle on, the end of where they're sharpening it. And now the price tag, because it was like $350 for this, like, pocket knife, like, looking, I mean, size.
Yeah, that's chunk change.
And they were selling, you know, they had larger ones up to $1,000 or more. But what people were seeing was the craftsmanship, not just visually seeing it, but looking at those photos behind and saying, like, oh, look at how this person went through and did it. And the guy was standing right there, and the guy was in the photos right there. So they're like, I'm buying it from this guy who takes this love and care into his product, and I get to see it. So, like, how worth it was just taking those.
Yeah, that's huge, because not only is it going to get more sales, but then the price tag can go up. I mean, if you can generate more sales and charge more for each sale, I mean, that's what everyone wants. And that's, if it takes a little bit more time or cost to document that process and show it, I mean, it's all about the ROI. And it's like, you know, you can either not do that, but then you're going to miss out on 200,000, whatever that number amount, you're gonna miss out on that many sales.
I was gonna say, but their photos were like, okay, they could have been done with a phone, you know, whatever. But the reality is, like, and so even if I teach a workshop or do anything, I mean, I'm like, you do not have to have professional photography. It definitely elevates your brand, and it will, and bringing someone in like me, it can make you think of things that you wouldn't think of on your own. And they'll see the value in that as they go. But if they're just starting out, it's just, the younger generation gets it, older generation doesn't as much, but there is that middle ground of really successful businesses not wanting to die out and kind of invite people in the process. And I don't know, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I love your thought and just how you approach, everything. 'Cause it's literally in line with what we are. It's cool to have that commercial that talks about who you are, but I think we're, there's a lot to be said where let's figure out how to come once a month or whatever and get video or whatever it may be and show the behind the scenes. 'Cause I'm sure they're tired of hearing it, but to me, I'm like, I think that's why like reality TV has gotten so popular, is because people like that behind the scenes, like lens, and just get that perspective. And when you can do it for your business, it'll get you in front of a lot more people that you might've missed. And that ultimately leads to more sales.
I think that's why like stories are even more popular too, because like majority of the behind the scenes things that I post are in my stories. And, there are things to be said for just real, raw, authentic, not photograph, not overly produced. And then there's quality, like I think both are super valuable. It's okay to not have everything perfect. But also if I had an inquiry yesterday from someone that just wanted new headshots, and I went on her website, and she's got one headshot of herself, and then she's got speaker, author, all these different things with no images on any of those pages. And so I was like, I can do headshots for you, but I really think you need a branding shoot. I'm not trying to push it, but you're missing out on all of those pages when somebody's clicking on them to not see you speaking, or not see, because then what I call it is like mental move-in, like when I see it, then I've mentally moved in, or I started to do business with you already. If I get, like, what's a scary place? Dentist's office.
Yeah.
If I actually see the photo of your lobby and a smile from the actual doctor, now I felt a little bit better, about if I have a fear, but I'm looking on different websites, and if it's just cold and sterile, it's not doing anything for that client.
So when people think of an industry or a particular business, they get what they think based off of all the information they've had. But as soon as they start seeing that, you kind of start erasing the whether it be negative or positive, you can help people come to the visualization that you want them to have, which will then make it a good place or whatever it may be, which then leads them to do business with you. But couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's would be exactly what we're saying. Looking for the people that are looking for you, or psychographics versus demographics, because it's got to, like, people have to be mentally ready. So like this woman, she may just want a headshot because she doesn't think, I don't know, but some people are just there. Oh, that's again, narcissistic, and that's where I've really been preaching a lot this last year about personal branding is not selfish, because, as we live in this digital age, and COVID, especially wiping people out from meeting in person, you only have that digital presence.
Exactly.
So how are you keeping your business alive with the in-person stuff when you can't meet in person? And now you have to show up. I did a thing of, hey, everybody, remember those photos that you took? Like, start using them, you know, because there is a good percentage of clients that get them, love them, and then don't know how to keep using them.
Yeah. That's a big thing we're trying to solve as well, is you can make it, but then you have the distribution side and all that. But with all that, that's what we run into as well, is just, it's tough to get in front of the camera. You have all that, but how do you help people get through that? Or what advice do you have on if someone to say, I don't want to, because I feel like I'm just being narcissistic. I'm all about me. I don't want people to think that. But what would you say to them?
Well, the number one thing is, do you help people with your products or services? Like, do you help people in your business? Like, do you solve a problem? And is it, you who is solving it? So if so, then they need to see you. They don't need to see another graphic, or quote.
Yeah.
From an app. Mm-hmm. They need to see you. And if you're starting a business, especially, the people who already know you, the people who are in your circle are going to be your biggest champions. And so again, if you're just like, hey, I'm going to start this side business selling jewelry, right? If I'm going to start putting all these pictures up of jewelry, people could be like, I like it or not. But if you put up a picture of you making the jewelry, people are like, go, Sarah, go, or go, exactly. What do you do? That's so cool. And you need those people to help you launch your business. Like, they're going to be the ones that are like, oh my gosh, my niece, Sarah, is doing a new jewelry business. Even though he could care less about buying any of the jewelry, he could be so happy for you because they love you. Like, it's not a bad thing to use the connections and the people that you have that love you in your life to catapult your business to get to those other people that will actually buy it. So in that case, like, if you just started some cold page with some products on it and you get no traction, that's most likely why, because people don't even know you're really doing it.
Exactly. I mean, with that, you're close friends. I mean, everyone's huge on influencer marketing and brand ambassadors. I mean, you got a ton by you, and for how to leverage them. And to your point, they'll be more willing to share it if it's you in action, the go you, rather than like, oh, here's some bracelets or jewelry,
right?
Which makes sense. And I want to get into the hero's journey here in a second. I heard you mentioning that and love to get into it. But before that, I think there's something that you've got over twice now that a lot of people struggle with, especially people starting off and very early on, is that imposter syndrome. I mean, how was that, facing it head on? How did you get through that? I mean, would love to just hear more.
So I think the biggest enemy is comparison. It's like, and for me, my kind of personal brand word, because this was an exercise, is like, what is the one thing that you try and help solve? And that's comparison, because it just stops you. It just makes you second guess, self-doubt, all the things that, so if you just keep thinking other people are legit, and you're not, and I think a big part of that is staying small, just not going and making friends in the same industry. I mean, anybody out there that can hear this, please make friends in the same industry, because you'll find out they're just people.
Yep.
And hopefully you can meet some cool people. You'll find, I don't know what words I can say.
You're open to anything.
There's a bunch of assholes out there, but there's a lot of really cool people too. And I learn more from my photographer friends and vice versa. Oh, you did that, or by the video light. Like, I love video lights in photography. I don't even use them much for video,
really?
Or anything. Because there's just a lot more control. So you get those tips and things along the way. So
I was gonna say, so was it literally like reaching out to other people in the industry and just trying to make friends rather than, just viewing everyone as competition and all of that? Because I mean, I'm huge on community over competition, and I'm a huge believer in that there's a lot of people that do marketing services and what we do, but there's a lot of people that do it differently and approach it differently. And there's a lot that is said where we could seclude ourselves from everyone and think everyone's doing better or different, whatever that may be. But if we can come together, there's a lot of different ideas they bring and tell us, like, we didn't think of that. And then you can innovate a lot more, which ultimately you're going to provide a better product or service, which ultimately goes into why you started the whole thing anyway. And so it amazes me how many people get stuck on the whole competition and all that. And to me, I think it literally is perspective and a mindset. And was it just hanging out with more people and make more friends in the industry that helped change that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was in the Bay Area, I wasn't really trying to network very much. I was just getting business that was coming in by word of mouth. So word of mouth was, and I still believe it's the gold standard. Oh yeah. But you come to a new place and you better be in person, you better network. Otherwise you're just a digital, shadow. I don't know. You better meet real people in real life. So I started going to everything. And one was Tuesdays Together, which is their whole slogan was, community over competition. And it was just full of photographers. It's for creatives it's a creative group. But the photographers were the number one source of referrals. They were sending me a lot of business, like the photographer friends that I made. And so it was so cool. And I still refer out business to people. I don't have a studio. I don't do like Ann Getty's portrait, newborn photography. I am really quick to make sure that I understand what the client wants and refer them out if I'm not it, because I know enough people that do this or do that, and rather than trying to make something happen, which I used to do, I used to try and think that I should be able to do this. I should know how to do this.
Wedding, newborn.
Right. Yeah. Versus being, saying, no, I don't do that. So I'll still do what I call family lifestyle sessions. So if I do a newborn session, it's just lifestyle in the home. So I'm really quick to be like, we don't do it in the basket. Like, I don't, that's not my style. I don't diss that style, but if you want that, this is a great person to go to because you don't want a disappointed client. Yeah. And, I'm fine with documenting and doing some, stuff like that. That's fine.
Yeah. No. And I love this because I think that's another big thing that people struggle with is, yes, we can do everything. I mean, what was that process like to go from, all right, I'm stretched too thin. I can't do 100% on everything. And now I'm only giving 60% on everything. And I mean, what was that like to finally be able to
liberating?
I imagine. I mean, it's something that I struggle with now. It's as well.
And still being able to say no.
It's hard.
There's a great guy, Bob Goff. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's written a few books. He's a great speaker, but he says, I quit something every Thursday. Thursday's my quitting day. And oh my gosh, you just love him because he's like, what do I need to take off my list? So every week, is it unsubscribe to that email? Is it, cool. Like, did I overcommit to something? I'm going to quit something every Thursday. Because we can get so, I committed to it. But you really have to take inventory and say, this is not serving me or the other person or the organization or any of those things so it's so good to say no. I mean, some people have asked me, why do you hate weddings? I'm like, I don't hate weddings. I just can't, I'm not going to try and showcase, weddings on my Instagram and all of this other stuff. Like I've shown, a wedding picture here or there because I'll still do them for close friends or clients that ask me to, but I don't have anything on my website. Yeah. I'm not, I don't hate weddings, everyone. You have to pick, and not every photographer has a studio. Not every photographer, it's okay to stop, And then I also do videos for clients. So I do 1-minute brand story videos where I really do love that framework. But they're very formulaic. Like I let people know this is what I do. And I'm very clear that I'm not a videographer. So some people will reach out to me and say, could you film my course, and nope, but I know who can, or I know where you can go. Cause I'm not going to even try to do that. I don't own any of the sound equipment. I do them with voiceover and music only so that I can just say, look, this is what I offer. This is what I do. And I have that special. And that's a huge thing is really kind of, mapping out your services. How do people work with you from start to finish? There's a clear process. If people don't want to get in your process, they can find somebody else. Yeah.
That is exciting to hear because we're literally going through that. I mean, when COVID hit, it's like, usually marketing is the first thing that gets cut. So, with it, it's freed up some time to what is it that we offer? What it was just like custom everything. And it gets tough. You recreating the wheel every time and it's tough to scale when you're doing that. And so we've gone through and from what does the onboarding look like? What does the working relationship look like? What are the deliverables each month? And so it's something we're going through. Outside of it liberating you, making you feel better, what was the impact on your business?
It was exponential. I got so busy. I had my first $10,000 month right out the gates. Wow. After that. It was like, whoa. People said, because I did showcase, what I was talking about and released it and said, look, I'm showing people in their business. I work with contractors. I work with any industry, you name it, capital management firms, So it's And people said, I get it. I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that was like the best compliment, you know? And so it was just, look at what she's doing here, blah, blah, blah. So even if you sell an MLM, are you going to keep posting their images and their whatever, or are you going to show you using the products or having them in your home or your kids with you? If you're trying, like, there's a lot of mompreneurs, you know, that are working from home selling different products because this is a model for them, but they are just regurgitating somebody else's information. And so everybody tunes out. But if you can keep people, you know, engaged in what you're doing specifically, that's a different, you know, thing.
How good did that feel hitting that first $10,000 a month?
It was like, I was just flabbergasted. Honestly, I couldn't believe it, but it was validating, you know, it's like that validating feeling of, but it's so good because you have to go through that struggle. So again, encouragement for those that, you know, are struggling. It's like, don't give up on those things. I thought, like I said, I sucked at marketing branding. And at that point I did. And I thought that I needed this really firm marketing strategy, but really what I needed was a strong brand identity to market. If you don't know who you are, I mean, I'm sure you probably run into that.
I mean, probably more times than not. I mean, some of the bigger businesses, it's tough to get that. Like, what is the problem that you solve? And it's like, well, we do this and this and that. But it's like, you haven't talked about the problem that you solve. You talk about all these different things that you do. But ultimately, what is the person feeling? Because that's how we try and approach everything, going back to the empathy and then the not so much the demographics, but the psychographics. It's, what is the pain that you're feeling? Is it, are you as a manager, like, are you not hitting deadlines? Are you getting pressure? And once you can speak to all that and really have that empathy, like, are you tired of feeling this way? This is what we can do to make you not feel that way. And here's the solution that we have to do it. And it's
hero's journey.
Yeah. It's clarity. Give me goosebumps. I mean, we've been working hard on trying to figure it all out. I mean, it's an ongoing.
You'll geek out over this framework. It's free, you know, it's free to everyone. And then they have some online courses, but it's so simple and so hard. As you know, getting clear is the hardest thing you can do, but it is so worth it. And so a lot of clients, after they work with me, they're like, that was therapy, you know, because I'm like, look, I can't illustrate what you can't communicate. You know, I can't, we have these spaces on your website for different things, but this verbiage over here, I don't know what the hell that means, you know? And especially with like finance companies, you know, you need to make that clear to people if you want them to work with you. It's great that you're so knowledgeable and you have big words to use. You need to make that clear to me. Otherwise, I'm walking away feeling bad about myself because I didn't understand your website. You know, so people aren't going to spend very much time on your site trying to figure it out. Like, you better tell them right away what you do. And if you have a photo of what you do with a really great headline that says, this is what we do, you know, the mystery marketing is what's, you know, can mess people up, where they're like, it's a really cool landing page. I still have no idea.
What do you offering?
Do? The name is like Core, you know, and then Core, like Pilates or I don't know, you know?
No, but I mean, I'm loving hearing everything about this, because it's like, we're literally experiencing that now. I mean, as I mentioned, we've been working on those packages and stuff like that. But even as we're having sales conversations, I mean, it's given me more clarity into what is it that we offer, what problems are we solving, and everything like that. And from that, my own personal clarity and being able to communicate it better, it brings more clarity on the person I'm communicating to. And it's like, there's been, I mean, way less emails back and forth on it. Wait, what is this? And what is that? It's just like, as we've been working on it, and I mean, it takes a lot of time and thinking, and it's a lot that goes into it. But as we've been going through the motions and the process, we've been seeing it on the back end, where it's just like, people get it that much quicker, and it's, they get the value that you bring, rather than trying to sell them on, here's what I can do. It's, oh, wow, it's that's the problems that you can solve. And I mean, it just makes having that conversation so much easier. Absolutely.
And just that conversation. So that initial conversation of like, so tell me about you and what you do. So if you're, you know, networking or, you know, trying to figure out, or you get a consult call or something, then they're talking to you. And if you can't understand what they do, I'll tell them, okay, so I still don't get it. So I need you to keep going because if I want to get a good image of this, like I like break it down for me again, and what's so fun is like, I'm a curious person and, you know, it's like, you're discovering so much about so many industries. You know how people say like, oh, you're going to be bored if I tell you what I do, you know, I'm like, I'm not, tell me what you do. And there are some industries that are particularly difficult to get photos of, you know, maybe like they install the plastic pieces that go inside the air conditioning in corporate. I mean, I've heard some stories like where I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe we don't need any photos of that, you know? But for the majority of people, especially small businesses, individuals, you better be able to communicate what you do and quickly. Otherwise, people are gone. People's attention span just keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So, yeah. But sorry, even just back to that of like having that conversation and asking people what they do. If in that conversation, you add value to them by helping pull out. So what I hear you saying is actually that you do this. Oh, I've never even heard it that way. But, you know, that's where, you know, being immersed in this, you know, understanding of clarity really adds value to other people. And then boom, they're your client. Because they're like, you're the right person. Yeah. You're the person I've been looking for. It creates that connection. And I've worked with a few different marketing companies that I've helped with their own marketing. Absolutely. Because you can't see yourself well. You can see other companies really well, but you can't see yourself well. And so we all need outside help. I went through branding with graphic designer and branding expert. And she really, really helped me. I'm like, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to charge higher pricing and, you know, do it, then I need to go through it myself. So I, you know, paid like $1,800 and all I had to show for it was a logo, but I got a profile, I got clarity. It was worth every single penny. I mean, even outside of that one deliverable or whatever was the logo, I'm sure the education and all that you got helped you communicate that I'm sure has brought in way more than that $1,800 that you originally invested. So that the ROI on that is just. Absolutely. And I did it right before I launched my new, like the way I was going to do things. So it was just put my money where my mouth is kind of a, you know, exercise and go through it and she brought out things that I wouldn't have seen, you know, just like that. I wasn't actually for particularly visual brands. I was for people who are struggling that didn't have really great visual brands, you know, because we tend to go after the shiny. Yep. You know, the big business. Yeah, the big business. Everyone's already went in. Now these people are going to hire me and, you know, all this. But she was like, no, you're looking for these people that are in this realm. And it was so true. I was like, I didn't even. Yep. And they're my favorite people to work with because they're the most grateful. Brands that are, you know, really heavily aesthetic and beauty brands and things like that, they tend to already have a good creative eye. And so they're going to scrutinize every little thing even more versus somebody who's not even like able to do that. And then you come and they're like, you're genie in a bottle, you know? And so you realize, wow, I feel better working with this person, not anything against the other, but if they've already kind of have something going on, then I'm not trying to go after that. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to is, I mean, I'm sure you're working way more than 8 hours a day. I mean, typically being an entrepreneur, but with that, I mean, the more hours you're working and stuff like that, you got to be happy doing it. Otherwise you're going to get burnt out and you're going to end up not liking waking up and all of that. And so, I mean, with that, it's knowing who your audience is. And again, going back to what problem do you solve and being, what value do you bring? It's identifying, okay, I don't want to work with them because it's not fulfilling. It might be couple extra bucks working with one client compared to one client. But at the end of the day, if I'm not happy, it's that extra money isn't even worth having. Yeah. And a big red flag, I think, when you are having a consultation call or something is when someone is trying to get you to work within their process and not understand the way you work. You know, they're saying, well, I want this and I want this, which is, it's okay to have certain expectations or think that we need these things. But if they're not going to listen to how you work or your process, then real quick, it's not a great fit. I mean, I'll have people say, well, I want all the unedited images and I want all the copyrights and I want, you know, and you're like, no, I'm sorry. Go to the college and find somebody starting out and, take all of their stuff if that's what, but, that's really quickly.
And is that hard to do as well? Cause I mean, even as we're hitting these packages, but trying hard to like, no, this is what we offer. Like this is what we offer. You either take it or not, but it's tough where it's just like, just that one request is like, you know what, we can deviate. But once you start deviating, that creates that opportunity of a snowball effect. I mean,
yeah, it isn't. It isn't. It's when you can create more of the framework for your services, it's a protection for you. And so you can rely on that to say no a lot of times, it's like your ability to kind of go like, this is what my service is. I call myself a recovering people pleaser. But yes, I definitely make accommodations. Every client is still different, everything they're doing, but it's more that vibe that you're getting off the person that's like, I really like to do this. And you're like, we can make that work. Gotcha. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like I'm a make it work person.
Yep.
So if I can, and I think I can do it, then absolutely I'm up for an adventure, but I also have to kind of manage.
Know your boundaries and how far you're willing to go out.
I don't have a drone, I'm, it just depends on what they're thinking that you're going to make. Yeah.
But that's what makes it tough because every entrepreneur, they're just good at solving problems. So it's like, it's tough to have that, not so much cookie cutter, but what about this? It's almost a form of a problem. And it's like, oh yeah, well, we can do that by doing this, and this, and you're ultimately solving a problem, but it's trying to find that balance of what problems you want to solve, but are also going to be, in line with what's going to continue to grow the business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot about, the hero's journey, and that's something I'm huge on because that's again, what we're trying to figure out as well is, get less of, hey, we're a marketing agency, this is what we can do and but really, who are the people that we'd have conversations with? What are the pains that they're feeling? And how do we communicate all that? And we're trying to go through the process and figure all that out. But I mean,
then you're right on the cusp of a breakthrough because you're going to help the people that are struggling the way that you're struggling with that clarity on how. So I think that's the thing is like fight the good fight, keep pushing through because it's like, well, what things did we get clarity in that we just geeked out over? Like we got so excited about, and those, what are the places that where in your business that you're working or working with clients that you find the most reward or the most excitement? So the hero's journey really is like, there's this person, they have all of these problems. So the way Donald Miller even talks about it is, like in Star Wars, who is the hero? Luke Skywalker. Yeah. Who's the guide? Yoda. Yeah. Or Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, Yoda is strong and all of these things. Our hero is usually weak and kind of pathetic. And, like Luke Skywalker is not somebody that you're like, he's just so incredible, like he messes things up, typically in movies, the formula is the hero is struggling. They have a problem. They're encountering something that they've never had in their life, and then a sage comes beside them and says, I can show you the way. Here's the door. Here's the path. Here's the process. If you follow me, then you'll, and then at the end of the story, it's the here's the outcome. Yeah. So we are the guide. We are the person in the other one's story. And the client is the hero of their own story. And you are just positioning yourself in a way that says, I've been through that. I see where you're going. I can show you the way.
The sage I am.
It's the sage. Yeah.
Be the Yoda.
Yeah. And so the more you can pump who the client is in your business and, recognize and validate what problems they face, then identify how they work with you. So that's the big other, crux. And I kind of went into a couple of other resources that really helped me with identifying process and package services. I was so scared to package my service because, but it's really just one. I have a couple different packages. It's really just one. It's like, this is where we start. And then this is kind of from where we go. Here we are, here we start. And then here's the things that I do to help get you over here. So for me, I have them fill out a questionnaire. We get on I create a Pinterest board for them. That's inspiration with locations clothing, whatnot. We get on a 1 hour Zoom call where I like share that board. We go through, they tell me if they like it. They tell me if they don't, things like that. We kind of switch from there. And then now we have, our date on the calendar of when we're going to shoot. And they now know what they are expecting, what they can do, so that's like just one part of the process. So they understand, okay, this is what it's going to look like. Or even like I put a deposit down, I fill out the questionnaire, we get on this consult call, then we shoot. Then this is when they get their images back. This is in what format, all of those things. And then they have like, then they don't ask me any more questions because it's all written
There's
out.
no unknowns. That's the biggest thing that I think causes people not to pull the trigger and move forward is the unknown. And then if there's unknowns, then typically your head goes straight to, well, what if this doesn't happen? And you go to the negative part and basically you just sell yourself on why not to use this person. So being completely transparent in the process and all that, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
So how do you go about, do you help clients through that hero's journey when it comes to photography? Do you incorporate that into your process or?
Yes. So with the 1 minute brand story, like if they want to do a video, I have them fill out a questionnaire that has very similar questions to that. And then I send it to a copywriter and they script it. I give that back to the client. They can edit it if they'd like. And then we do a voiceover. Either I can have someone record it. I've recorded some of my own, or the client can in first person so that it's their voice, especially with brands that their name is their URL. That's the big one that I say is like personal branding. It's better if it's in first person because it's really from you, but you've been able to identify with your client. Like, so say it's a coach, like a life coach. They've struggled with maybe depression, alcoholism, PTSD, or, whatever. And then they've figured out like what breathing technique and has been the combo that has, so then they bring in all that competency. And then I got my BA and I don't know. So then it's just boom. So right now I'm hooked because I have PTSD too. And I've struggled with this too. And, we all like the me too is the strongest thing in marketing.
Yeah.
Is I relate with that. I have that same issue.
Relatability.
So again, you don't have to, like, let's take something like toothpaste, like, or toothbrushes. Like, how many toothbrushes, like they say toothpaste is like the biggest multiple brands like on the market. How do you stand apart?
Yeah.
It's just solving the problems for these particular people. So there's like Sensodyne and there's, or, Tom's that's more all natural. There's room. Do you know what I mean? Like there's room on the shelf for all of us to express the way that niche is to help people. Like, everyone has teeth. So some clients will be like, anyone who's got a back, I'm here for because I'm a chiropractor. Yeah. But I work for people who have accident-related injuries. I work on backs specifically from car crashes. How much more are you going to then the people that hear, I've been in a car accident, I'm struggling with back pain.
They're the expert. That's who I should be working with.
You just then carved out a niche. Like, okay. So like when I've been in networking groups and you hear somebody, anybody who has a car, I'm the client for, you know, I'm not the client, or it could be my client, you know? Yeah. It's just like, stop saying that.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
dig anyone, a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Toyotas and Hondas. I work on those, okay, great. I have a Toyota or, like my neighbor does. It's just so much more referable than anyone who has a car.
Yeah.
Your mind just goes blank immediately.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like you can resonate, but if it's my make or it's something personal to me that I own and it feels like we're relatable because you work on the car that I own rather than just everyone and anyone. It's kind of creates that exclusivity and people want to be part of exclusivity. I mean, it's so big. And so I think that's kind of where the psychological part comes in when it's like, I only cater to this. Oh, well, there's a whole bunch of people that they don't cater to. And I'm lucky enough to be the one that falls within their vision. Like it changes that whole perspective of how they see who you are and what you offer.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I love everything that you're talking about. I mean, love hearing the story. I mean, you've been grinding, you've been growing quite a bit. I mean, what does the future look like for you in the next, even 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me is coming out with like digital products and services, but I want to. I'm trying, especially when it comes to personal branding. I think that there's a lot there and, you know, a lot of value that I can bring to someone trying to, you know, work on their personal brand as well as illustrate their personal brand, because we live in a time that you get to tell people who you are and how you help them. For good or for, you know, but and especially I think because it's like false humility that a lot of us have when we're scared to move forward and say like, I can help you. That's false humility. Like you need to help people if you can, you know, and especially if you've been through something or you've struggled in some way, then stop hiding, you know, and step out and tell people that. But there's tons of people who don't even know how, you know, it's exactly what we're talking about, but on that smaller scale of just who you are as a personal brand, because even corporate industries, you know, say you're a lawyer for a manufacturing company, for your career wise, like your trajectory, like you should let people just generally know what you do or how you help people. And that might transition you into a better position with a different company. You know, so if you're really letting the world know, even if you're not your own business, you can still make great choices when people have you in mind for that specific thing. So if you're just comfy in your job and you're not really letting the world know like, hey, this is actually what I want to do, or this is the transition I want to make. So that's really where my heart's at. And I love this Phoenix Valley area. There's just a lot of fantastic people to work with as well.
A lot of California people moving out here.
Like by the droves.
Oh, it's insane. One of my buddies said it's like 200 or 300 people a day are moving out here. That's a ton of people.
I've also heard that people are still moving into California. So
that's true. I mean, there's just a ton of people just moving.
Yeah, it's just in, out, you know, the revolving door.
Yep. So I loved everything. I mean, as we kind of wrap up, I mean, I love everything, your thoughts, your perspective on how brands should be thinking through how to really tell their story and really humanize their brand and build that relationship with their prospective audience. I mean, anyone that's thinking about starting that process or wanting to do it more, I mean, what are the biggest tips that you have for them on what they should be thinking about or what they should expect as they start going through the process?
I think, you know, there's those questions that you always have to ask yourself, like, what do I love doing? You know, it seems very elementary, but it's no, really, how do I love helping people? You know, when somebody says thank you, what lights you up that you were able to help them that you take for granted? You know, you don't necessarily see that as a super strong skill.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of what we're really good at, we take it for granted because we just think it comes easily, but it doesn't come easily to everyone. It comes easily to you. So how can you take that and get better at it? You know, like really intentionally, because it comes easily to you, or because, you know, just being generous or helping somebody out with math, you know, is like, but does it light you up? And then can you get even better at that? Or how, you know, that's kind of where things start. They say what you love plus what you hate equals your passion. So what do you hate? What makes you angry? What breaks your heart? You know, like what are the things that get you fired up? Those are personal branding questions, you know, like who am I? What problem am I wanting to really solve? And how can I turn that into a career? You know, or a job? And then you can ask yourself all the same things as a bigger business. But, you know, it's like start in that core and then
keep building on it. Keep building out the messaging and figuring it out.
And then once you get clear, tell everyone about it.
Tell the world.
Tell the world about it. And it can, and don't forget to tell the people that are closest to you. Don't go like shout to the people who don't know you. Tell the people around you that know you. They're going to be your best supporters for sure for starting a new business.
No, I can agree more. And Sarah, thank you so much for the time. I mean, I've loved this. I could literally probably talk another couple hours. I love your perspective and just how you go about, I mean, just branding and marketing and all that. And love to maybe set up a second opportunity. That would be awesome. But
be happy.
If someone's looking to, get a hold of you or want to use your services, how can people reach you?
I am Sarah with an H, Hoag, SarahHoagPhotography.com. I'm on all platforms as Sarah Hoag Photography. So pretty easily can reach out. And I love, like I said, I'm always looking for people who are looking for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, for the people that are listening, like I said, solo entrepreneurs or small businesses, we're huge on storytelling and humanizing the brand. So I'm sure there'll be a couple people that'll reach out, but really thank you so much for your time and coming in, especially during current conditions and all that. It was a fun conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. This is an awesome studio space and you guys are so welcoming and a lot of fun. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.